What is up, guys? Welcome to another video. That Geeky guy here, and today we'll be looking at a classic constructed tier list. So with the release of 5 Stormbine and Islander, at least for the adult version in the case of Islander, so we'll be looking at how these heroes stack against up each other. And the reason I'm doing this now because there are some data on how Fire and Stormbine performed. So it basically helps me in getting a better overview of the meta. However, you should remember that this just gives a general perspective on all the hero. So depending on your local meta, some heroes might not be as viable depending on who they are going against. As you can see here, this tier list do have a Bravo, star of the show here. We're gonna just ignore him. He is living legend now, which is a nice thing to have. Bye bye Star War. If it's Star War gone, the meta I feel is open up a little bit, giving way to some aggro archetypes such as Briar, Fai, Katsu to actually perform well. Hampered only by classes such as Islander, Ice Lexi and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's go right through it. So we have Kano here. So Kano, it really depends. He did perform well in the last season when Bravo was around. So the trick is to actually burst down the opponent as fast as possible, providing that you get to Arsenal Aether Wildfire and pop off from there. However, with Ninja having another arcane barrier, depending on how much they respect arcanes, but I expect people to at least have 2 arcane barriers, up to 3 if they are afraid of arcanes. So Kano is, I'm gonna put him in viable. He is still very scary since in classic constructed we do have access to Aether Wildfire. So Dash is in a very interesting place. She can either race with all the aggro decks, or she can slow them down and basically shoot them to death with her pistol. She is pretty much still viable. I think not as much as some other heroes. But I'm gonna put her at somewhat viable because Dash is something that people don't really experiment with, but I do believe that she has her place. Next, we are looking at Azalea. Unfortunately for Azalea, she is still pretty bad. But some of the cards might be useful, such as the Remorseless or even Red in the Ledger against going white classes like Fi. But still, she is unfortunately not viable. But for all your Azalea lovers out there that still want to try it out, sure, go ahead. Next, we have Viserai Runeblade. Viserai is super strong now, just because there is no Star War in the field, so he can go into a more aggro kind of route instead of depending on OTK, since OTK is less. It's a less viable route now with Skelada gone, but still Viserai proved to be a powerhouse with access to cards such as Revel in Runeblood, Swarming Gloomville, and with the chest equipment being Aether Ironweave is still pretty strong, so definitely a competitive deck. Next, we are looking at Prism. People are experimenting so much with Dromai. We are seeing a less and less of Prism. But I believe with all the go white decks running around in the field, she is still viable, just not as strong as before when Star War was dominant. So I believe she'll still be viable because with all the white decks coming out, I'm sure that Bravo's Showstopper, this OG Guardian over here, is gonna do well against those. So Prism is gonna come back and basically try to counter that, and then also she does really well against Kano's, those pesky wizards. So she's gonna be viable, just not as much as previously. Next, we are looking at Sir Bolton. In the aggro archetype, in this one, the Radiant build is not as strong as all the aggro decks, and also his Centauri Blade does require 2 Luminaries to be ready and have some soul. With so much aggro decks going around, it's gonna be a bit hard for him. I'm gonna put him at somewhat viable. Some might find ways to actually make him good, but as I can see now, it's not that good. Chain, of course, is already a living legend. We're gonna skip him out. Next, we are looking at Levia. So there are certain wins around the globe, especially in Taiwan, with a player getting a win in the recent I forgot what it's called, in a recent ProQuest, I believe, with Levia, but she is definitely very, very situational. I'm just gonna put her in somewhat viable. She's fine at most. With most of her 6 attacks, you're gonna be good against Prism and Dromice. Torrentia Iron Song is still, I believe, still pretty good. There are some wins recently with the new card, Glistening Steel Blade, so she might be still good. With a Prism being eaten alive by other aggro decks, Dorantia might have a chance, and she can actually race with those aggro decks with her Dawnblade counter increasing by every turn. So if the aggro decks allows her to just freely hit them, it's gonna be hard for them. Also, Dorantia does pretty well against Dromai by hitting into her dragons. She's gonna get the Dawnblade counter as well. Rhina, on the other hand, is really, really interesting. I believe he is in a better position than some of these somewhat viable decks. I'm gonna put him in viable. He's still pretty good with the 6s, and then he does pretty well against Dromai. Just he suffers a bit against going wide decks. Even so, he's gonna have some close matches, and he can close out matches with reckless swing. So that's a good thing that going for him. Next, we are looking at a Bravo deck. So Bravo is definitely a competitive deck with cards such as Crippling Crush, and then we have cards. He has cards such as Spinal Crush. So these are some of the cards that actually help him into aggro matchups. And definitely some of these aggro decks don't really like to block, so this does help. Katsu is a strong deck, definitely always has been. He is definitely more viable than Kano, of course. I'm gonna rearrange this around, just gonna make sure that everything is in the right position. So Katsu is definitely a viable deck, and nothing much to say. Good old Katsu is always reliable. Next, we have Olhaim. Olhaim is definitely a competitive hero with the Frostbite tokens and certain fuse cards such as the Oaken Old, which is really annoying. So Blizzard does stop all these go gains, so he's definitely in a strong position. Briar is a strong hero to be. I believe she is right there with Viserai, pretty strong. She only her weakness would be Frostbites, and of course cards that prevents go again and things like that. Next, we are looking at Lexi. Lexi is definitely a viable hero. Because of all these rising aggro decks, she is in a very good position. Things like hit effects such as this card and also Frostbite really helps Lexi. Even her the Lightning Lexi build is pretty good with Out of War and One of Kind, pushing the damage to ridiculous amounts with Rain Razor. So she is definitely a viable deck. Next, we are looking at Islander Stormbine. Islander is a decent deck, not as good as these other classes. She does require some help. The thing is, she plays like a control deck, so poking and prodding at the opponent until down to a certain. Just doing wizard things, make sure that you are slow blue cards, and then just play out the Waning Moon, chipping away at the opponent. Definitely viable, but a bit on. I would say I would put her right in front of Rhina. Next, we are looking at Dromai. Dromai is decent, but she would struggle a bit on classes like Ninja and stuff. So she is somewhat viable depending on your local meta. So Katsu can easily pull off his Katsu trigger against Dromai. Fi can easily mass trigger. Briar, if she really wants, she can actually hit and create an Earth token, I believe. And then so she is in a rough position because all this wide deck, but I believe with certain tweaking she definitely can do good. But for now, I'm gonna put her in somewhat viable. Fi is good, but just not as good as the OG Katsu, just because of the lack of feed effect. He does have to rely on rupture cards mostly, with cards such as Breakpoint and stuff. So depending on how it goes, he definitely struggles against Arcanes and also the Frostbites. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's the tier list. Let me know what you guys think. If I can swap some things around, I might put I might put Lexi in a higher tier at competitive. You know what? Let's just go ahead and do that. She's pretty good. Katsu is gonna remain here. Fi. I'm gonna put Kano right here. There is bound to be some Kanos in the field doing so much work. Yep, that's pretty much it, guys. Maybe Rhinar, I can put him in a somewhat viable in front of Stormbine. So some last minute changes. Poor Azalea, all there alone in the not viable field. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and see you guys in the next one. Take a chance to thank my Patreons, and also thank you guys for watching, and do like and subscribe. Bye.